The silence that shook the galaxy. The galaxy had always been a place of constant noise. Thousands of species argued across communication channels every single day. Trade disputes lasted for months. Border negotiations stretched across years. Alliance meetings filled entire space stations with delegates who debated endlessly about resources, territories, and power. Everyone had something to say. Everyone wanted their voice heard. But among all these voices, one had become noticeably absent. Humanity had stopped talking. At first, nobody noticed. The Galactic Assembly continued its usual business. Representatives from the Crothan Empire discussed mining rights near the Outer Veil. The Sylvan Collective proposed new trade routes through neutral zones. The Vorgan Dominion demanded expanded military presence along contested borders. Meetings happened as they always had. But the human seats remained empty. No ambassadors arrived. No holographic representatives joined the sessions. No messages came from Earth or any of its colonies. 3 months passed before someone finally asked the question, where are the humans? A junior delegate from the Marathi species raised the concern during a routine assembly. The chamber fell silent for a moment. Then laughter erupted. The Crothan ambassador, a towering figure with crystalline skin, dismissed the concern immediately. Humans are probably fighting among themselves again. They are too emotional to maintain stable governance. More laughter followed. The Vorgan representative added his own opinion. Perhaps they finally realized they do not belong at this table. Their expansion was too rapid. Their technology too borrowed. They were never truly equals. The assembly moved on. Nobody thought about humanity again for several more months. Earth's communication networks went completely dark. Colonial outposts stopped responding to trade inquiries. Human cargo ships disappeared from major shipping lanes. Space stations that once bustled with human traders now operated without a single human presence. Mining operations in the asteroid reaches, previously managed by human corporations, were quietly taken over by other species. Nobody objected. Nobody questioned. The galaxy simply filled the void humanity left behind. 1 year became 2. 2 became 5. 5 became 10. Still no word from Earth. Still no human ships in neutral space. Still no ambassadors at the assembly. The laughter had long since faded. Now there was only confusion mixed with quiet concern. Some species began developing theories. The Sylvan scholars suggested internal collapse. Perhaps humanity destroyed itself through civil war. The Crothan military analysts proposed economic failure. Their expansion was unsustainable. They depleted their resources and retreated into isolation. The Vorgan strategists offered a darker possibility. Maybe they are extinct. Perhaps a plague or disaster wiped them out. But one voice disagreed with all these theories. Professor Kelmerith was a Thoraxi historian who had spent 40 years studying human behavior and culture. He had visited Earth twice before the silence began. He had walked through human cities, studied their literature, analyzed their military history, and interviewed their leaders. He understood something about humanity that others did not. So when the Galactic Assembly invited him to provide his expert analysis on the human situation, his response shocked everyone present. Kelmerith stood before the assembly, his 6 eyes scanning the crowd of delegates. His voice was steady and calm. If Earth is silent, then Earth is planning. Humans do not retreat because they are weak. They retreat because they are preparing. The chamber erupted in protest. Delegates shouted disagreements. The Crothan ambassador demanded evidence. Professor, you speak nonsense. If humans were preparing something, we would detect it. Our sensor networks cover half the galaxy. Kelmerith remained unmoved. You detect what they allow you to detect. Humanity has always excelled at one thing above all others: adaptation. When they face a challenge they cannot overcome immediately, they disappear. They study. They innovate. They return stronger. The assembly dismissed his warnings. 20 years had now passed since Earth's last communication. 20 years without a single human presence in galactic affairs. Border territories that once belonged to human colonies were absorbed by neighboring empires. Space lanes previously patrolled by human destroyers now fell under different jurisdictions. The galaxy had moved on. Humanity was becoming a memory, a footnote in galactic history, a species that expanded too quickly and collapsed under its own ambition. But then the anomalies began. Deep space monitoring stations in the frontier regions started detecting unusual gravitational readings. They were not natural. Black holes and neutron stars created predictable gravitational signatures. These readings were different, controlled, artificial. Localized distortions that appeared and disappeared within seconds. Science teams investigated but found nothing. The distortions left no trace. No debris. No radiation. Nothing that explained their origin. The Vorgan Dominion controlled the largest sensor array in the known galaxy. Their military prided itself on detecting threats before they materialized. So when their primary detection grid began registering spatial anomalies near the silent frontier, they immediately launched investigation protocols. Admiral Thrackan personally oversaw the operation. He dispatched 3 scout fleets to different coordinates where the anomalies appeared most frequently. Each fleet consisted of 12 ships equipped with advanced scanning technology. They were ordered to investigate, report, and return within 4 standard days. 4 days passed. No fleet returned. 8 days. Still nothing. 12 days. Complete silence. Admiral Thrackan sent a second wave of scouts. These ships were ordered to maintain constant communication and retreat at the first sign of danger. The first ship reached its designated coordinates and began scanning. The captain's voice came through clearly at first. "We have arrived at Sector 792. Beginning deep space scan. Preliminary readings show nothing unusual." "Wait, there is something here." The communication started breaking apart. The transmission became fragmented. "Something is interfering with our systems. Navigation is failing. Sensors are showing impossible readings. Admiral, there is something massive here. Something we cannot see. It is right in front of us, but our screens show empty space." The communication ended with a burst of static. Admiral Thrackan immediately ordered a full military alert. He pulled back all patrol ships from the frontier regions. He established a defensive perimeter 3 sectors away from the anomaly zones. He reported everything to the Galactic Assembly. "This is not natural. This is not random. Something is out there and it is actively hiding itself." The Assembly convened an emergency session. Delegates argued for hours. Some demanded military action. Others urged caution. The Crothan ambassador proposed sending a joint fleet to investigate. The Sylvan representative suggested attempting diplomatic contact. Professor Kelmerith attended that session. He sat quietly in the observation gallery, watching the chaos unfold below. When the Assembly finally asked for his opinion, he walked slowly to the speaker platform. His voice carried across the silent chamber. "You still do not understand. Those ships did not encounter an anomaly. They encountered humanity." The chamber exploded with protests. "Impossible. Humans do not have cloaking technology. We would know if they developed something that advanced." Kelmerith's expression remained grave. "You knew everything about humanity 20 years ago. But 20 years have passed. 20 years of silence. 20 years of preparation. What do you think they were doing all that time?" The galaxy waited nervously. Sensor networks remained on high alert. Military fleets maintained defensive positions. Scientists analyzed every scrap of data from the lost scout ships. But nothing provided answers. The anomalies continued appearing randomly across the frontier. Ships that ventured too close disappeared without trace. Space itself seemed to be changing in those regions. Navigational charts became unreliable. Established trade routes suddenly showed dangerous gravitational fields where none existed before. It was as if invisible walls were being constructed throughout space. Then, exactly 30 years after humanity's last communication, every major communication network in the galaxy received the same message simultaneously. It was not spoken. No voice accompanied it. Just 2 words displayed on every screen across thousands of worlds. "Stand clear." The message carried Earth's old military encryption signature. A code not used in 3 decades. A code that represented humanity's highest level of security authorization. The galaxy froze. Nobody knew what it meant. Nobody understood what was coming. But everyone knew something had changed. The silence was ending. And whatever emerged from that silence would reshape everything they thought they knew about humanity. The return of the silent giants. The message vanished as quickly as it appeared, but its impact rippled across the galaxy like a shockwave. Within hours, emergency protocols activated on every major world. The Galactic Assembly called for an immediate full council session. Military commanders across dozens of empires reviewed defensive strategies. Civilian populations watched news broadcasts with growing anxiety. 2 words had accomplished what 30 years of silence could not. They had unified the galaxy in fear. Admiral Thrackan stood in the command center of the Vorgan flagship, studying tactical displays that showed fleet positions across 12 sectors. His officers worked frantically, repositioning ships according to emergency protocols. Sir, we have confirmation from all perimeter stations. Every empire is pulling back from the frontier zones. The Crothan have withdrawn completely. The Sylvan are evacuating their border colonies. Even the smaller independents are retreating. Thraken nodded slowly. They are clearing the path. But for what? On the planet Corvallis Prime, home to the Galactic Assembly headquarters, delegates gathered in the Grand Chamber. The atmosphere was tense. Gone was the usual posturing and political theater. Species that normally competed for influence now sat together in worried clusters. The Crothan ambassador spoke first, his crystalline features reflecting the chamber lights. We must assume this is a military action. Earth is returning with hostile intent. We should prepare a unified defense. The Sylvan representative disagreed immediately. If they wanted to attack, they would have done so already. The message was a warning, not a threat. We should attempt communication. Professor Kelmerith sat in his usual observation seat, watching the debate with tired eyes. He had spent 3 decades warning anyone who would listen. Now they were finally paying attention, but it was too late for warnings. Whatever was coming had already been set in motion. A young Thoraxi assistant approached him nervously. Professor, the Council is requesting your presence. They want to know what humanity will do next. Kelmerith stood slowly, his old joints aching. What humanity will do next is show the galaxy what 30 years of focused determination can accomplish. The debate in the assembly chamber continued for 6 hours. Proposals ranged from military mobilization to immediate surrender. Some delegates suggested sending negotiation teams to Earth. Others argued for establishing a defensive barrier around the core worlds. Nothing was decided. Nothing could be decided because nobody truly understood what they were facing. Then the lights in the chamber flickered. Every display screen went dark. Emergency power activated, bathing the room in dim red light. Before anyone could react, the screens came back online. But they were not showing the usual assembly interface. They showed space. The view was from a high orbital perspective above Corvallis Prime. Delegates recognized their own world below, the blue and green surface clearly visible. But something was wrong with the image. The stars were disappearing. One by one, points of light in the black void began vanishing as if something was passing between them and the planet. Something massive. Something that blocked starlight itself. The chamber fell absolutely silent. Every delegate stared at the screens. Every eye watched as the darkness spread across the sky. Then they saw it. The first ship emerged through what appeared to be rippling air, like something passing through an invisible curtain. But calling it a ship felt inadequate. It was a structure. A floating fortress that stretched across the horizon like a second moon. Its hull was unlike anything in the galactic database. The surface was not metallic in the traditional sense. It was darker than deep space itself, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Veins of blue-white energy pulsed across its surface in patterns that suggested both organic growth and deliberate engineering. The ship moved with impossible grace for something so massive, drifting into position above the planet with absolute precision. A Crothan military analyst in the chamber activated his personal scanner, attempting to gather data on the vessel. His device immediately overloaded. The readings made no sense. According to the scanner, the ship's hull was denser than any known material. The energy signatures matched nothing in their databases. He looked up at the screen with genuine terror in his eyes. That ship is built from compressed stellar matter. They somehow harvested material from dead stars and forged it into a hull. The chamber erupted in chaos. Impossible. No species has that technology. Even the ancients never achieved stellar harvesting. The analyst kept shaking his head. I am reading the data directly. That ship should not exist, but it does. The first ship was not alone. A second vessel emerged beside it, equally massive but shaped differently. Where the first was broad and fortress-like, the second was elongated like a blade. Then a third appeared. Then 10 more. Then hundreds. The sky above Corvallis Prime filled with human ships of varying sizes, all constructed from the same impossible material. Smaller vessels, each still larger than traditional battleships, moved between the giants in perfect formation. They created geometric patterns in space, defensive structures that overlapped to provide complete coverage. It was not a fleet. It was a wall. An impenetrable barrier of human engineering that surrounded the planet completely. Similar scenes unfolded across the galaxy. Above the Crothan homeworld, human ships materialized in high orbit. The Vorgan capital woke to find their sky filled with dark vessels. The Sylvan Collective's primary trading hub watched as humanity's armada positioned itself around their system. Every major world, every strategic location, every seat of power in the known galaxy suddenly had human ships overhead. They had not traveled. They had simply appeared as if they had been there all along, invisible and waiting. Admiral Thraken stared at his tactical display with growing horror. His sensors finally registered the human presence and the numbers were overwhelming. Conservative estimates put humanity's fleet at over 50,000 ships. 50,000 vessels that had been constructed in complete secrecy over 3 decades. His tactical officer tried to analyze their formation patterns. Sir, they are using gravitational anchoring. Each large ship is generating a controlled gravity field that links to the ships around it. They have created a network. If we attack one ship, we attack the entire fleet simultaneously. The energy required to break even a single link would exceed our entire military output. On Corvallis Prime, the Galactic Assembly remained frozen, watching the screens. Then every communication system activated simultaneously. A voice spoke. It was human, but there was something different about it. The tone was measured, calm, carrying no anger or aggression. Yet it held absolute authority. This is Admiral Chen of the Earth Defense Coalition. Humanity has returned to the galactic community. For 30 years we withdrew from galactic affairs. Not because we were weak. Not because we were defeated. But because we chose to evolve. The galaxy thought our silence meant surrender. The galaxy was wrong. The voice continued. During our absence you took our territories. You claimed our colonies. You erased our presence from galactic maps. You believed humanity would fade into history. We allowed you to believe this because your beliefs did not change our purpose. While you argued about trade routes and border disputes, we were building. While you celebrated our absence, we were advancing. We did not abandon the galaxy. We simply stopped playing by rules that no longer served us. Admiral Chen's words echoed across every world simultaneously. We harvested the remnants of dead stars. We learned to compress neutronium into stable forms. We developed gravitational manipulation that allows us to fold space itself. We created ships that exist partially outside normal dimensions. We achieved in 30 years what most species cannot achieve in 3 centuries. Not because we are superior, but because we had a singular focus. Protection. Survival. Advancement. Humanity will never again depend on the mercy of others. The assembly chamber remained in shocked silence. Then the Crothan ambassador found his voice. What do you want from us? Admiral Chen's response was immediate. We want nothing from you. We are not here to conquer. We are not here to enslave. We are not here to destroy. We are here to establish a new reality. Humanity is no longer a junior member of the galactic community. We are not equals. We are the dominant force in this galaxy, and this dominance is not negotiable. The screens changed, showing detailed specifications of human technology. Gravitational weapons that could collapse a planet's core. Defensive shields that redirected kinetic energy into alternate dimensions. Propulsion systems that manipulated spacetime itself. Manufacturing capabilities that could construct a battleship in 72 hours. Resource extraction methods that made traditional mining obsolete. Every piece of data was shared openly, deliberately. Humanity was not hiding its strength. It was displaying it as a statement. Professor Kelmerith watched everything unfold with a mixture of vindication and sadness. He had warned them. For 30 years he had warned them. But warnings meant nothing to those who believed themselves untouchable. Now the galaxy would learn the lesson he had tried to teach. Humanity's greatest strength was not technology or weapons. It was their ability to commit completely to a goal and pursue it with absolute determination. When they decided to evolve, they evolved. When they decided to return, they returned as something the galaxy had never seen before. Admiral Chen's voice returned. We are establishing new boundaries. Human space will expand to include the territories we previously held plus additional buffer zones. Any species currently occupying these regions has 60 standard days to relocate. We will provide assistance with the transition. We will not negotiate these boundaries. We will not accept counter-proposals. This is not a discussion. This is a declaration. The galaxy adjusted to our absence. Now it will adjust to our presence. The massive ships above Corvallis Prime began moving in perfect synchronization. They did not fire weapons. They did not make threats. They simply demonstrated their coordination, their power, their overwhelming presence. Each ship was a message. Each formation was a statement. Humanity had returned, but not as the species the galaxy remembered. They had transformed themselves into something new. Something powerful. Something that would reshape galactic civilization whether others liked it or not. The Galactic Assembly dissolved into frantic debates. Some empires prepared for war despite the impossibility of victory. Others immediately began diplomatic outreach, seeking to establish positive relations with the new power. A few simply accepted reality and began evacuating territories that would soon become human space. The galaxy was changing. The balance of power had shifted completely. And at the center of it all was humanity, no longer asking for a seat at the table but building their own table and deciding who would be invited. Professor Kelmerith left the assembly chamber as delegates argued about responses they could not implement. He walked through the corridors of the government complex, eventually reaching an observation deck that looked out over the city. Above, the human ships hung in the sky like dark monuments to ambition and determination. He thought about the humans he had met decades ago. He remembered their curiosity, their optimism, their belief that they could achieve anything if they worked hard enough. That belief had been tested. That belief had been forged into something harder than steel. And now that belief had returned to remind the galaxy of a simple truth. Never underestimate a species that goes silent. Because silence is not surrender. Silence is transformation.